Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is another one of the Right Angle famous now legendary Thunder Rounds. This is not like anything you've ever seen before on Right Angle. There is nothing that even approaches it. It is not a derivative concept. This is fresh from my fertile mind, and it springs upon you now. Stephen Green, what we're going to do here is we're going to ask a couple of questions to each of you. I have not prepped either Zoe, Rachel, or Stephen Green in advance for what's coming their way, but they are going to now be blindsided. It's kind of a form of ambush journalism with some headlines that I thought were interesting, and I don't care if you don't. So, Stephen Green, you're first up. This story comes to us from CNN. A Virginia family gets the keys to Habitat Humanity's first 3D printed home. Stephen Green, apparently they can build one of these homes that would normally take weeks to construct in just hours, less than a day. Do you think that this is going to become a wave that's going to benefit a lot of people who cannot afford either the time or expense that it takes to build traditional housing?
I want it to benefit even people who can afford traditional housing. I'm not kidding here at all. We're still building houses like we were 100 years ago. Same basic setup. Maybe it's 200 years now. I've never really gotten deep into the history of home construction. But I do know that it's the same basic thing. You lay the cement down and you've got the standard walls with the joists, and you've got the studs, and you've put up the drywall and all that. And it seems to me that with the advances we have made in the last probably 40 years in materials, and the advances we're making right now, especially with 3D printing in construction techniques, why the hell are we still building houses in the exact same way we were 100 years ago? It just makes absolute no sense to me. And as a homeowner, and as somebody who's made a lot of home improvements himself, I can tell you with some authority, just based on nothing more than the number of F-bombs I've dropped, wondering, why the hell do they do it this way when they could do it this way and I wouldn't have to do this instead? Please.
By the way,
there has to be a better way.
Included with that Habitat for Humanity home, the homeowner is also going to get their own smaller scale 3D printer. So if anything breaks in the home and they have to replace like a switch plate cover or for an outlet or something like that, they'll actually be able to manufacture it right in their own home. I just think this is...
You know what, Scott? I hate to interrupt your thunder round. But just one last thing. My wife, having endured 2 pregnancies and particularly 2 labors, would like to be able to 3D print children from here on out.
And that new Matrix movie is coming out soon. So, Zoe, Rachel, this is a topic for you. This is from, I don't even know what publication this is from, but the story is that Hispanic voters in Reading, Pennsylvania, in Berks County, Pennsylvania, not far from where I used to live in Lehigh County, are shifting toward the GOP, toward the Republican Party, and neither party can really figure out why. But obviously one party is scared about the prospect of Hispanic voters moving in the direction of the Republicans, and the other party is just trying to come up with a way that they can really squander this opportunity. What do you think this... What do you think this could mean in a city that is practically, Reading, Pennsylvania is practically 2/3 Latino? What kind of broader implications do you see here?
I'm assuming that this was probably a question for me because my name is Alfonso, I guess, which sounds, Spanish or Mexican or something like that.
You're not Mexican?
No, actually, I got the name because my grandmother's Filipino. So, they speak a lot of, Spanish in the Philippines. And strangely enough, I know it sounds like Alfonso would come out of the more romantic languages, but if I understand correctly, Alfonso is actually Germanic, which is kind of strange. It's
I
kind
had no idea.
Yeah,
and Rachel is Hebrew.
Yeah, so I got a German first name and a Jewish last name. How about that? That's America, baby.
Yes.
Now, of course, Google that or TikTok it, and double check. I could be wrong about the etymologies of my name or histories of my name. But in terms of this has been a long time thing. We often hear in conservative circles that, like with the Black community or Hispanic community, our values are typically conservative anyway. And just the problem is because of the racial narratives out there, a lot of times blacks and Hispanics don't want to be associated with conservatives because they don't want to be associated with people who have been deemed to be racist. So that's one of the reasons why there hasn't been that shift per se. But the implications this, I wonder, it's like, well, that's good to hear that Hispanics are being more out of the closet in terms of their conservatism. But y'all might want to be careful with that because the Democrats might be like, oh, really? You want to do that? Well, ain't no more of y'all coming into the country. So, we may take those planes that we gave to the Haitians to send them back, and we might have some planes to send you back to and whatnot. And you just might not find yourself being more welcome by us anymore, and us being the champions of immigration, even though they leave out that illegal thing, or just friendly to or pandering to the Hispanic community in general. But you know what? If they stay the course, they'll find that those who are of the Latino persuasion be like, look, man, you can go ahead and you can get to stepping with that anyway. We found what we're comfortable with, and we don't need you.
And some of the things that the article points out is that it's a lot of Latinos come from a Roman Catholic background, and the family-friendly policies and the life-friendly policies of the Republican Party are much more in concert than the policies of the Democrats towards specifically issues like abortion. And one of the things the story points out is that Republican President Ronald Reagan actually welcomed millions of immigrants into the country, while Democratic President Barack Obama was the great deporter. And so, the table is turning. And like I said, let's see how quickly the Republicans can screw this up. Stephen Green, there is an opinion writer at The Hill whose name is John Kenneth White. And he has written a rather breezy piece of too many thousands of words under the headline, "The Constitution Isn't Working." And I will summarize it for you thusly, Steve, and get your reaction to this. The Constitution isn't working because everything's wrong with how we're working the Constitution. Do we need to fix this Constitution?
Well, I love the idea of the Convention of States, which is you can go to conventionofstates.org or .com, whatever it is. If we get enough states together, we can propose some amendments, and this is the never used way to amend the Constitution, and rein in the federal government and scale it back to something appropriate to the Constitution as was written. The 9th and 10th Amendments, if we could just add one line to the end of each of those amendments that says, "And we mean it, no loopholes," that would solve so many of our problems right there. And Scott, I did understand the question correctly. Yes, that the Constitution isn't working because we've been ignoring it, or increasingly ignoring it for the last 100 years.
Well, this isn't what the guy is saying. He's pointing out all the flaws of the Constitution. For example, it allows the Congress to slough off its responsibility to be the only entity that can declare war by allowing the president to do this. The executive branch has shirked its responsibilities onto regulatory agencies or pushed them back into the lap of Congress.
So he's
that kind of thing.
He's on our side, basically. Yeah, the changes I would make.
He just doesn't know it.
Yeah, Congress can't slough off its mandate to legislate. End of story. If something has a weight of law, it has to pass through Congress. Period. There are just some simple, small fixes that could make the document work the way it was supposed to. The big flaw, and this is one of the things the founders didn't foresee, the Constitution's not perfect. It wasn't supposed to be perfect. That's why there's an amendment process. But Madison's vision was to have three branches of the federal government, each of which, in his word, would be jealous of its powers against the other two. But when you have a Congress that is no longer jealous of its powers, that would rather be liked than do its job, and has all these executive agencies that it can say, you figure this out. That's really what's killing us here.
You reminded me of something that seems unrelated, but I have this little tablet that I can take notes on. It's an electronic e-ink screen tablet. And I was showing it to a friend of mine. He said, that's really cool. And I said, the only thing I don't like about it is that every time you boot it up, it takes a long, long time to boot up. And so it takes, it seems like a long time, which probably means it's 40 seconds. And it just takes a long time to boot up. And so I don't like that about it. Well, Steve, as it turns out, that same week, I stumbled upon the owner's manual for this device, and I found out that I had actually had a setting on here that told it to completely shut down when I turned it off.
Oh, instead of sleep, yeah.
Instead of just going to sleep. So this thing actually does not take a long time to boot up. And when I first read the Constitution as an adult, frankly, and looked at it and I thought, whoa, wait a minute. This is how it's supposed to work?
That's not what I see on the news every day.
That's right. Okay, final question, and this one goes to my friend Alfonso Rachel. Zoe, President Biden began a press conference. Actually, it was a call with governors around the country to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic this week. And he started off with the sentence, "There is no federal solution. This gets solved at the state level." Zoe, I don't know whether to call for a moment of silence and thanks be to God, or just to ask for your reaction to that sentence.
Man, yeah, I guess it's not. When you said it's not a federal thing, I figured instead of going to a state level thing, I thought he would jump to it's not a federal thing, it's a global thing because they all seem so globalist oriented anyway. And or I thought he would finish up with saying like, it's not a federal thing, it's the thing, it's what kind of thing it is. So I'm just gonna be like, well, man, I'll chalk it up to being like, hey, I'm impressed, man, that you were able to go ahead and say this thing for yourself as it is. And you know what? I mean, I'm personally happier when people are asking like, where is Biden or where is Kamala Harris? When they actually step out to say something or it looks like they're doing their job, I actually get nervous because their job in their mind is actually to undermine the country and sell us out in the first place. So I'm like, you know what? Don't do your job. Don't say nothing. Biden, you just go ahead and you have your runny jello and you stay in the basement. And Kamala, you go ahead and do whatever that you want to do, but don't do anything presidential or what is supposed to be, I guess, in your mind as presidential. So, I don't know. I'm not, I don't know if I find any sort of comfort in it. I just wish that it would just kind of like stay on vacation.
Well, if I thought that the president really believed in this doctrine, I'd be very excited. I don't think, he's, as it said in The Princess Bride, he keeps using this word. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. It doesn't, or he certainly doesn't think it means what I think it means. But, conservatives for years have been distracted by many and various issues, and we always get tied up in particular policy battles or news of the day issues. But if we could just get one fundamental thing right, let's give it a shot for a year or two and just say, let's put the states in their proper constitutional role. Let's put the federal government in its proper constitutional role and see how things play out. And I know that there are people on the left who will make the argument and say, well, that's what got us, Jim Crow. And I'm like, well, you could make that argument. Let's grant it to you, okay? Let's just say that the reason why that civil, discrimination continued for so many years was because of some sort of structure of the, individual states were able to impose this upon their citizens. Well, my kid scuffed up the car once, and I was upset about that, but I didn't say he would never be allowed to drive again. Maybe if you're on the left and you think that states' power caused racial discrimination, maybe let's give it another shot when the hearts and minds of so many people have been changed in such a profound way and see how that works. Now, I don't really think what you think, but if you do, why not give it a chance? If you're upset about what they're doing in Washington, whether during this administration or the previous or the next, why not say, hey, maybe if those guys in that remote district didn't have so much power, that there would be more opportunity across the country, at least in 50 different states, to try things that might work. And then maybe some states would be more successful than others. And then, in that case, maybe the successful states would be objects of emulation. And so that the states that weren't as successful would say, hey, that state has it right. I think we should try that instead of what we've been doing. Because that's the way the framers envisioned it. It was going to be a bunch of experiments, and people would be able to benefit from this diverse knowledge, not just a small group of people in one place making decisions for everybody. So actually, that was my favorite story of the week, is the president saying there's no federal solution to this. That should be the slogan of the political party that really wants to govern this country according to constitutional bounds. For Zoe Rachel and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.